Hello, everyone. Tonight, I'm going to share something I wish I could forget. It isn't about haunted mansions or curses in the woods. It looked like a person, and that makes it worse than any ghost story. It never ran, never spoke, only watched. And no matter where I went, it found me again. Well, then, let's begin. It started in late November, on a night when the rain stitched the city into blurred reflections. Streets turned into black mirrors that swallowed light. I left work long after the last elevator bell, carrying tired eyes and a dead phone. The lobby smelled like wet wool and floor polish. The security guard dozed in the blue television glow. Outside, the wind slid under my coat and the rain tapped a precise metronome on the brim of my hood. The old district was the shortest way home. Stone alleys, crooked gutters, lamps that hummed like trapped insects. My footsteps splashed and dissolved into narrow air between the buildings. For a few minutes, I had only the rain for company. Then I heard them, another set of steps, faint but perfectly timed with mine. I slowed. They slowed. I stopped. They stopped. I turned and saw only slick cobblestone, rain hissing in orange pools of light. I told myself it was an echo, some trick of water on stone. I kept walking, keeping my shoulders loose the way people do when they're pretending not to be afraid. The footsteps returned, heavier now, like boots filled with water. At the mouth of a narrow passage, I chose a shortcut I always regretted. A slot of darkness between brick walls where the city seemed to hold its breath. Halfway through, I lifted my head and froze. Under a dying street lamp stood a tall figure, motionless. Its head had a questioning tilt, like a bird studying a coin. The rain did not touch it. I could not find a face, only the clean, raw outline of a person cut from darkness. "Hello?" I asked, the word too small in the alley. "Do you need help?" Silence. No breath, no rustle. I took one step. The lamp shivered, then died. The alley flipped to black. Right next to my ear came slow, damp breathing. Something cold brushed my knuckles. Long, wet fingers searching for the seams of my hand. The lamp banged back to life. The end of the passage was empty. I walked out fast, refusing to run because running would make it real. When I reached the street's open light, I glanced back and saw wet footprints stepping out of the alley. They ended a pace behind me, as if whoever made them had been closer than my own shadow. That night, I slept in fragments. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that tilted head under the flickering bulb. The radiator knocked like someone tapping on the wall in the next room. The sound braided with imagined footsteps in my hallway. At 3 a.m, I turned on every light and sat on the floor with a mug of cold tea, waiting for the sky to pale. The next day, I told myself it had been a shape in the rain, a hung coat, the mind's reflex to carve a pattern from fear. I changed my route. Busy avenues, windows full of people, places with coffee and music. It didn't matter. 2 evenings later, the bus was late. The shelter's plexiglass rattled in the wind, and the fluorescent tube above me buzzed like a wasp trapped in a jar. When the bus finally eased the curb, I took a seat near the back and watched rain stitch a river down the window. The glass made a dark mirror. In it, at the far end of the aisle, stood a tall silhouette with his head inclined in that curious angle. I twisted around. The aisle was empty. A man coughed near the front. The driver swore softly at a red light. In the window's reflection, the silhouette hadn't moved. I pressed the stop cord and got off 2 stops early. pretending I had errands. The subway felt safer because machines don't believe in ghosts. The tunnels were bright and busy, the air smelling of brake dust and hot metal. A violinist sawed at a melody on the platform, coins glimmering in his case. When the train roared in, a heat of air pushed against my face. I stepped into a car, the door side shut, and my reflection fused with the window. The train bucked into motion. Between islands of light, the glass turned black and reflective. In it, a second train ran beside us, a shadow carriage keeping perfect pace. Its windows held only darkness. Then, for one heartbeat, a shape leaned toward that darkness from within, as if it were listening to me through the glass, and the second train vanished into tunnel stone. At the next station, I changed cars. Fluorescent lights hummed. A poster peeled at the corner, like a lip about to speak. As the inbound doors were closing, a long, pale hand slipped between them from the platform side. Too long. The fingers jointed like twigs. The door stalled, reopened, and the platform was empty. I surfaced into early evening that smelled of roasted chestnuts and rain. I went into a cafe with large windows and lamps that made everyone look softer. I ordered coffee I didn't want to cradle the heat, like a small island. Outside, the glass carried the street in silver streaks. A child pressed both hands to the window and laughed at something in the road. The laughter halted mid-breath. He stared past his own reflection and very slowly tilted his head. His mother touched his shoulder. He blinked hard, and the laugh came back thinner, like paper. That night, I dreamed in simple geometry. A corridor of doors, each cracked open with a dark inside. At the far end waited a person with a tilted head. I woke to hammering rain and the sound of my refrigerator motor pretending to be footsteps. When the motor clicked off, the footsteps continued, so soft I could call them memory. I turned on the bathroom light and stared at my reflection until my face looked borrowed. In the underground pedestrian passage beneath the roundabout, sound behaves like a tide. Every footfall returns as a different ocean. Mine came back with a second rhythm braided into it. Slower, heavier, placed with care. Halfway through, a figure waited at the exit, cutting the white light into two uneven pieces. I told myself it was a pillar with a stubborn shadow. I took 3 steps toward it without blinking. In the half-second of darkness, when my eyelids shut, the figure crossed half the corridor. I opened my eyes, and it was simply the exit. I walked a long way around the city after that. I started losing nouns. Fear steals language first. I wrote lists to hold the day steady. Milk, soap, stamps, sleep. In the margins, I drew small black silhouettes with a line where the head bent. The grocery store seemed neutral at dawn, when only the refrigerator spoke. In the canned goods aisle, I found a trail of wet footprints starting at the end cap and stopping beside my cart. They were too long, too narrow, as if someone had drawn feet with a wet finger. I left the cart and pretended to read the ingredients on a label that wasn't there. When I looked up again, a tall figure stood at the far end of the aisle behind a display of paper towels. I blinked, and there was only a tower of paper towels. Water dripped from its plastic in a slow beat that sounded like breathing. My building had a basement garage where the concrete sweated all winter. I avoided it, but groceries are heavy. The elevator from the garage opened into a small lobby that always smelled like rubber and cold metal. I stepped in and pressed my floor. The door shivered shut. The fluorescent light drew a high, thin whine, and then settled. Heat gathered along the back of my neck the way it does when someone stands too close in a line. I watched the steel doors. In their dull mirror, a black column seemed to stand just behind my shoulder, its head inclined. I turned, and the elevator was empty except for the sound of cables humming like distant bees. I got off at the 3rd floor instead of the 5th and took the stairs. The stairwell smelled like dust and iron. On the landing, someone had taped a note that read, "Please keep door closed. Heat escapes." The 4th floor door stood open the width of a hand, breathing the building's warm air into the concrete throat. I closed it gently and felt, through the metal, the slow exhale of another palm on the other side, closing with mine. I began leaving the radio on at night. Voices crossed the rooms like string, tying the furniture to the hour. I didn't listen to content. I only needed sound to keep the walls from leaning in. Still, there were pauses between songs, and in those pauses I heard O would talk under slow weight. I measured the hallway with my eyes and counted my breaths. At some nameless hour, my bedroom door stood half open, though I remembered closing it. Cold pooled around my ankles. The steps came down the hall, found a board that creaked, and stopped beside my bed, so close the mattress understood and sank a fraction, as if someone had sat where no one was. I told a co-worker everything. She said I needed rest and lent me a dog-eared novel about a detective who notices tiny things. At home, a line about a man inclining his head to listen made the air in the room judder slightly, as if a truck had passed below the window. I placed the book face down and looked at the blank television screen. In its high-gloss black, the room reversed itself, and in the reversed room a tall shadow stood behind my couch with his head bent toward the silence between channels. I bought salt and circled my bed because a forum once told me fear needs borders. I slept inside that ring like a coin in chalk. Sometime past midnight, the line near the door clumped as if it had inhaled damp breath. I told myself humidity is a fact of winter. The power went out 2 nights later. A branch took the line down the block, and the building sank into quiet. I lit candles and sat at the kitchen table where a puddle of warm light made a small country. Outside, sirens moved like cold stars behind weather. In the window over the sink, the city was a broken necklace. In the glass I saw myself, and several feet behind me, a tall shape set at that precise, curious angle, as if listening to the candles whisper. I did not turn. I lifted my hand and kept it very still. The flame leaned in my direction and then toward the glass, as if interested in both of us. I left town the next morning. I told no one. I booked a cheap room at a roadside motel 2 hours away, where the ice machine muttered to itself. The room smelled like lemon cleaner and old smoke. I stood under the shower until the hot water ran thin and thought about how water erases footprints. Afterward, I drew the curtains hard and watched dust leap in the slats. Trucks peeled the highway like tape. I slept, and in sleep, I walked a corridor glass where every door was a window, and every window showed a version of my kitchen window at dusk. In each, something stood behind me and waited for the kettle to sing. I returned because there is no far enough. The city greeted me with frost and a sky the color of a bruise healing. For 3 days, nothing happened. I cooked soup and believed in the domestic ceremony of bowls. Hope makes fools of us kindly. On the 4th night, my bedroom door was open again. Silence had layers. I lay awake with my eyes closed, because sometimes seeing nothing is easier than seeing something. The steps began in the living room, crossed the rug without sound, and found the floorboards. Place, place, place. They paused at the threshold. The air leaned over me. A weightless pressure touched the space just above my jaw, as if lips searched for a question they had practiced for years. The breath that followed smelled like damp stone and old leaves. I understand now that what follows me is not trying to be seen. It appears when attention is a coin spinning on edge, when rooms are between meanings, when doors are half, when night is not fully itself. It is the posture of listening turned into a person. It is the moment before a name. I moved the bed away from the wall. I stopped using mirrors at night. I keep salt, a radio, and a flashlight on the bedside table. I pretend these things matter. Most evenings, I hear only the refrigerator and the thin thread of a neighbor's television. But sometimes, when the city is a necklace of dimming beads, my steps find a second rhythm that matches mine with affectionate precision. I think of the bus window, the elevator steel, the cafe glass, the TV screen, the stairwell door breathing warm into concrete. Every surface that can hold a reflection, and every place a head can tilt to listen. Last week I stood in my kitchen pouring tea, watching steam write brief letters on the air. In the window over the sink, in the square of evening city and my ghost face, a figure stood behind me with its head inclined, as if listening to the kettle sing. I did not turn. I lifted the cup and took a careful sip. The steam touched my cheek the way a hand might. The figure in the glass did not move, and neither did I. We listened together to the soft, forgetting song of boiling water until it faded into the ordinary hum of the building. And that's where our story ends. Thank you for listening. Subscribe, leave a like, and hit the bell so you never miss my next story.